People are gradually going insane. I don't say that in any facetious or condescending way about the people who are going insane. But just tonight, I was trying to make this video, and then I discovered that the default settings in the mic reset themselves. So rather than using this mic here, which is my desktop mic, the computer decided, for whatever reason best known to itself, to use the voiceover mic that I have soundproofed in another room. As a result, I gave out this great video. I recorded a 20-minute fucking video here, and there was no sound. And this is what's happening to a lot of people, because we're relying on technology now to an extent exponentially more than ever before. There are those of us who are good at technology, and then there are people who are shite at technology. And the people who are shite at technology are going to be having a difficult time in the future, because, for example, if we look at the courts, I was required to get this microphone and that webcam because of taking court cases. So I didn't want a mic or a webcam on my desktop PC because I don't want Bill Gates looking at me scratching my arse. But I was required to do it for the court cases, so be it. But I have them, I can unplug them when I want to. They're not integral to, I use a TV as my monitor. I mean a TV that I bought in Tesco I use as my monitor. It has a DVD player in the side of it, so I can watch DVDs quite separate. I can have the computer switched off and just watch DVDs here. I can disable that camera when I want to. The way you disable a webcam is unplug it. That's how you know, however tinfoil you may be, they can't really look in on you if the fucking thing's unplugged. You can't beat being unplugged. So the technology went assways when I was trying to do this video earlier tonight, and I very nearly went into the fourth dimension with anger. And, you know, because it happens all the time, particularly with Skype, which is a pile of shite in terms of its settings. Skype's a fucking horrible program to use. Fucking awful fucking application Skype is. The microphone always resets itself in Skype, always. So I've gone for the sound here again. We'll see how well this fucker goes. Anyway, let's talk about masks again, because there's a lot, there are videos online giving people legal advice and this kind of thing. This is not a video giving people legal advice. This is me sitting in my office chatting to you. That's all. This is a chat from me to you. That's all. But I'll tell you my experience of masks. Back in August, we were hearing a lot, at the end of July, we were hearing an awful lot of bullshit out of RTE and the Irish Times. Now, here are 3 golden rules. Don't trust RTE, don't trust the Irish Times, don't trust the government. Stick by those, you won't go wrong. So, masks are going to be mandatory in shops. They were saying, masks are going to be mandatory in shops. So I was saying to myself, right, just wait and see what the actual statutory instrument is in relation to masks. What you're told by RTE could be quite different from what the statutory instrument says. Well, yes, it was quite different, because the statutory instrument states that there's an indemnity for those who claim extreme distress and difficulty breathing. Well, I'd find wearing a mask usually extremely distressing. Much depends, I think, on the textile used in the mask. But anyway, there's certain types of masks I would wear. But I wonder how they'd go down when I go down to buy 6 eggs. But anyway, getting back to that. I refuse to be forced to wear a mask. And I looked at the statutory instrument. It said there shall be an exemption for extreme distress. Yeah, it will cause me extreme distress and difficulty breathing. You better believe it. You better believe it. So if you claim those, then I looked further into the statutory instrument. It didn't state any burden of proof against anybody who is claiming those 2 indemnities. So in other words, if there's no burden of proof against you, it doesn't say you have to have a doctor's certificate. In other words, what that means is, and any lawyer will tell you this, and I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. Probably, mercifully, I'm not a lawyer. Imagine I gave legal advice to people. Christ. But Any lawyer will tell you that the relevance of law isn't in what it says, it's also as much equally in what it leaves out. The term that senior counsel in court would use is they would say it's silent. The law is silent on XYZ. Well, the statutory instrument is silent on burdens of proof against a person who's claiming exemption. It's also silent on whether or not, now, this is when I last looked at the statutory instrument, on whether or not, if a person is charged with not wearing a mask, whether or not it's an indictable or summary offence. An indictable offence means it's heard in the circuit or high court, which is called the central criminal court, and that you have the right to trial by a jury. A summary offence means that it's heard automatically in the district court and you do not have the right to trial by jury. There are no jury trials in the district court. There are none in, well, I think there are in the circuit court, but I'm not a lawyer. I think there are jury trials or criminal trials in the circuit court. You have the right to be tried by jury in the circuit court. You also have the right not to be. You have the right to be tried just by a judge, if you wish. But what I noticed about the statutory instrument pertaining to the mandatory wearing of masks in shops is that it's so bloody loose, and it so runs, it flies in the face of the burden of innocence and the burden of proof and the presumption of innocence, that it's effectively unenforceable. Now, one must always be courteous to those running shops and working in them. So I wrote to the Garda Commissioner in charge, the Assistant Commissioner Anne-Marie Cagney in charge of Dublin, and I told her that I would be claiming I would not be wearing a mask. And I wrote that letter to her. It's on my Twitter. I wrote it before I even got to see the statutory instrument. But I'm claiming something else. This would be a constitutional thing, which is much further down the line if you want to go to court. Don't be telling people constitutional things when they're arresting you in Centra for buying eggs. That doesn't work like that. But there is a constitutional thing, and that's a person's right to refuse medical intervention. If you are a competent adult, if you are not in some way insane or mentally incapacitated, you have the right to refuse medical intervention. So I'm refusing medical intervention. I've been refusing it since August because it's my body and it's my choice. Now, so I went the full 9 miles anti-mask back in August, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. I went the full anti-mask in August and nothing happened. Here we are now. It's the 30th of October. It's a beautiful full moon over Howth tonight. Everybody's going completely fucking off their rockers today. I mean, it's really a day just to hide yourself in the basement or the attic. Everybody's just going fucking do lally today. But I'm still not wearing a mask. Anyway, that's the way that you can avoid wearing a mask. Don't be getting into arguments with people in shops. Well, what I mean by that is, don't be getting into arguments with people working in shops. What I found when I claimed my anti-mask indemnity was that none of the shops gave me any trouble. None. And there's a video online of somebody behaving disgracefully in a shop. It was put up about a week ago. Some guy telling a man working in a shop, these masks are stupid, yeah. No, that's not the accent. These masks are stupid, right? And I'm claiming my constitutional right not to wear a mask, right? And you all you sheeple in the shop, right? All you sheeple, you have to wake up. But don't be going on with shit like that to people who are earning minimum wage in a fucking public shop. How dare you speak to people like that? Then they wonder why anybody who dissents from wearing a mask is called a crank when people behave that way. If you're questioned by a member of staff in a shop saying, I'm claiming in my indemnity under extreme distress and under difficulty breathing, and you leave it at that, don't live stream them. How dare you live stream people who are doing their job? How dare you do that? That's appalling to harass people that way in a supermarket. Now, if you think an incident has arisen in a supermarket that may, or any public premises, if you think there may be evidence needed, record it on your phone's camera. But don't be live streaming. Keep it for later. Don't be live streaming. Then they wonder why people laugh at them and why the Irish Times and RTE are saying, these are the alt-right and all this kind of thing. No. Don't be doing that. I mean, the alt-right, what's called the alt-right, what those wankers call the alt-right, I call them the alternative conservatives. We've had a great year. We've blown it to bits this year. We have that, John Williams. There was a word hanging on my lips there. We've John Williams in RTE, coming out with these ridiculous ads. Oh, you can trust RTE. No, sorry, we can't trust RTE. If we could trust RTE, you wouldn't be so fucking desperate in coming out with these ads. Hey, what does it say? There's nothing more annoying than looking at somebody with a cigarette and they won't fucking light it. So sorry, folks. It's been a great year for the alt-right or for the alt-conservatives. I refuse to be. I'm not right-wing. I'm centrist. I'm not right-wing. I believe government should get out of people's lives. I believe, though, the government should also look after the poor. We're not doing that. We're not looking after the poor. The government isn't getting out of people's lives. So, we do not have what I would describe as a centrist alternative conservative government. We don't have that. What we have instead are a crowd of authoritarian narcissists like Simon Harris, Varadkar, Micheál Martin. We've all these people just bullying us or trying to, but they're not bullying me. They wouldn't bully Mrs. Carmody. They're not going to bully me. But it's very hard. It's very hard for people because you have to have gone up this road before to be ready for the shit they come out with this year. All of us out in the altcon scene, I mean, it's incredible the extent to which there is so much unity on the altcon scene, considering how we all bitch about each other normally. This is what these ones, on Twitter and all of that, and in RTE, they don't realise. There's knives drawn in the whole altcon scene, particularly between the likes of me and the free men. Oh, Jesus. The altcon scene, or what they call the alt-shite, the wit, the alt-shite. I mean, you can even see them all on their Zoom call with their soy lads. It's alt-shite, alt-shite. Alt-shite. It's the alt-shite. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Alt-shite. The alt-shite. They're not the alt-right, but they're the alt-shite. Because they're shite, right? More soy. But those of us in the alt-shite, if they want to call us that, we've all been stabbing each other in the back and in the front and somewhere else and all over the place for the past 10 years. But if those fucking idiots want to imagine that we're some united vanguard that's banging on the door, going to make them eat meat and wear leather and, going to confiscate all their soy and their hormone replacement tablets and all their beta blockers and whatever they take. Okay, they want to believe that. Well, I'm not going to disavow them with that one. I'm not going to disavow them with that. What am I? I'm a guy sitting at home in my parents' house in my study here on a computer. But no. We're the biggest threat. God knows we're the biggest threat in Irish history, according to the Irish Times. So, let's leave them with that one. Let's let them dwell in that one. But one of the divisions between all of us out there on the alternative scene is the issue of pseudo-law and free man on the land. And it's very sad because pseudo-law is something that I have... Okay, I'm not a lawyer. Okay, I can't give legal advice, but I can fucking well tell you that pseudo-law is wrong. Anybody can tell you pseudo-law is wrong. And we're looking now at the poor McGanns down in Strokes, and I support them. But I don't support them unconditionally. Well, I do. They should be staying in their house. I'd support that. Absolutely, they should be staying in their house. But then you look at some of the techniques that they've used, and it becomes exponentially more difficult. The front page of an affidavit was published a few days ago, and I read it, and I just said, oh, no. No. It's full of all that pseudo-law bollocks. It's, affidavit of truth. Affidavit of truth. It's not exactly going to be an affidavit of lies, is it? I'm not laughing at the McGanns, far from it. But I do condemn whoever misled these elderly, rural people into believing that that was a legitimate way of protecting their best interests. It's not. It's damaging them. It's very sad. The McGanns aren't stupid people, obviously. But they're older now. They're probably in their late 60s or early 70s. They've lived on that particular farm their entire lives. They've never lived anywhere else. They probably... I assume that they didn't go to secondary school because First of all, state subsidised secondary education. We never had free education in the state, but we do have state subsidised secondary education. It wouldn't have been available when they were ready to go to secondary school. The enforcement of attendance at secondary school didn't exist then. So they probably finished primary school and went straight to work on the farm, and after that, now here we are. That's been their lives. That's a perfectly respectable way of living. It's a perfectly honourable way of living. Farm life is an honourable life. Rural life is an honourable life. I think kids benefit greatly from doing farm work in safe circumstances. Now, we hear of terrible tragedies on farms, but that's mainly because of negligence. Kids who've grown up on farms, first of all, have an ironclad immune system. But secondly, they get used from an early age to being careful and respectful around animals. And that's very important. I remember teaching I remember doing substitute teaching in an Educate Together school. And somebody had brought in a litter of kittens to the school to show to the kids, I don't know. And one kid in my class, they brought them into my classroom, and I was only a substitute teacher. I had good control. The kids liked me, actually, because I was interesting. But the kids never ran riot in my class, but a teacher brought in this basket full of newborn kittens. It had been a few days old, and one boy jumps out of his seat, runs over and sticks his hand in them. And the teacher pulled the basket back from him so he didn't get his hand in. And I said to him, "Do you know what you're doing there?" I said, "Obviously not." I said, "They're animals. They're baby animals. They'll scratch you, they'll attack you, or if their mother was with them, you'd be lucky to get your face out alive for doing that to a basket full of kittens." And this is what happens when you recklessly expose city kids to animals without briefing them beforehand about the risks that are incumbent in animals. So, for example, you'll hear of cows attacking people who come near them with a newborn calf. That's what they're supposed to do. It's a mother with her baby. She's going to do that. A dog with her pups will do the same kind of thing, and a cat with her kittens will do the same kind of thing. So country kids don't do shit like that. I've taught in country schools as well. I've always found the country kids a lot more switched on than the city kids. Country secondary schools I've taught in country primary schools, and there's no comparison between the kids. Country, kids who've worked on farms, grown up on farms, it's very, it's been a huge benefit to them. I say that unconditionally. All the kids I've taught who've grown up on farms, they'll talk to you about farm life. They'll talk to you about how they were, as babies and as toddlers, how they were made respectful and responsible around farms. It's terribly beneficial. And we have this generation of kids now in the city who don't have a clue what an animal is. They do have a clue from watching RTE about this poor victimised diverse child among them whose daddy actually was an illegal immigrant, and isn't it terrible that the law is being enforced? We have that on RTE. We don't have children being taught how to deal responsibly with animals. I look back at Sesame Street when I was a child, and programmes like Sesame Street were great in the 70s and 80s. Sesame Street was brilliant because it taught kids these kind of things. Be wary of animals. So we'll get back to the McGanns, though, because I have digressed. We'll get back to the McGanns. The McGanns are probably now going to lose their home. And one of the reasons why they're losing their home, one of the primary and main reasons why they're probably going to lose their home, is because the legal defence techniques used for them were wrong. This is a tragedy. And they cannot be expected, the McGanns cannot be expected to know the correct legal mechanisms or procedures in place to protect themselves. But what has happened has been, looking at the document that was published on social media, obviously they've been using extremely wrong and misconceived and destructive and dangerous techniques. I have always been an extremely strong opponent of pseudo-law. Pseudo-law means free man in the land technique, saying, I looked at the affidavit from Mr. McGann. This is the land of Yahweh, and I am a life and flesh blood man. And once a judge sees that, they won't admit it. They won't let it into court, and they're right. The judges have no option to do that because there is a broad procedure applicable to an affidavit, and if you're going beyond, and I mean, the judges, my experience of the judges is that they're very lenient if you break procedures, so long as you're being truthful with them and so long as you're sticking broadly within the framework that they do expect. Judges tend to be more lenient rather than less lenient. I'm not going to have the judges rubbished in this video. But when you're coming out with this kind of thing, I have grown up on the soil of the land of Yahweh, a judge is going to say, no, just no, not happening. So the judge, I think, is Leonie Reynolds. I don't see any reason to believe she's a bad judge. Okay, Albert Reynolds was her father. So what? Doesn't mean that she's a corrupt judge. Doesn't mean that she should be impeached or all of this. You know, no. So the problem for the McGanns now is that they are still, as of this week, using these misconceived techniques. The outlook is bleak. The outlook is bleak if they're doing that. And again, it's not dissimilar to the people who are wearing masks. They have been misled as well. But there was a good documentary on primetime on RTE back before John Williams started spreading his filth. Back in the days when they had good news editors in RTE. And it was A Matter of Trust, primetime A Matter of Trust. And it was a very good documentary. It's still up, you can still watch it. It's very beneficial. And it's dealing with the Freeman and the land stuff. But it's very disheartening to see that that hasn't gone away and that it's going to be used. You know, the McGanns have employed this technique. They didn't know any better. They're not to be blamed. What I do think should have happened they should have been given free legal aid from the start, and proper lawyers should have come in to rescue them. But it didn't happen. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. And instead, somebody came along and drafted their paperwork in this absolutely misconceived and wholly wrong way. And, you know, if you go about things wrongly that way, well, then there's only so much that the lawyers or the judges or the banks can do. Once I saw that document, it totally opened my eyes in relation to what's happening with those people. Those people, the McGanns, deserve to be treated with respect. I respect them. This video is not disrespecting them. But it is disrespecting the people who are filling their heads with this nonsense. And to an extent, it's similar to the way that RTE and the Irish Times are continuing to fill the heads of people with nonsense in relation to masks, in relation to your legal obligations, in relation to your right to refuse medical intervention. You know, they are broadly the same thing. People are being misled and they're not being told the truth.